Well, I guess it's about time. Most of you would agree that power is an important aspect of a shonen story, especially for one like Honkai Impact, where the characters never seem to be able to settle their differences without resorting to some kind of violence. There's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to how strong a certain character is. Do they have a broken ability they could use? Can they come up with a plan that requires at least 5 minutes of dialogues to explain? Or did their hair suddenly grow a few inches? These are all important things to consider. Today, I'm doing a fun one by putting them in a tier list. Most of them, because not every character was created equal. The list will cover any developments up to the end of the Moon arc, where Kiana got put under house arrest. This will obviously be an opinion piece, though a juicy one, as you can spin this kind of discussion any way you want depending on your definitions. Expect heavy spoilers, and let's begin. Starting in the lowest tier, we have Gricio. Basically, how strong she can be depends entirely on the person you put next to her for an extended period of time, which can be deadly, but it's just that, potentially. Because despite being said to have blown up an entire city as a result of sitting next to Kelpads for too long, it served more to showcase her lack of control over her power rather than the extent of her ability. Because having powerful abilities won't do you any good if you don't know how to use it properly. And combined with her current depiction as a literal child that doesn't understand the scope of what's happening half the time, she might accidentally blow you up if you're not careful, but otherwise she's mostly harmless. D tier. Talking about childrens, we have the Vodka twins. They are stronger than your average person because of the genes they stole from Cocolia, but it wouldn't translate too much due to their serious lack of experience. This was because they seem to always get benched every time something important happened. This has made their already rare appearances into nothing much outside of smashing or slashing their way through the enemy with the greatest force they can muster. D tier. There was this saying from Kevin about how easy it was for a typical mantis to beat a Herrscher, which does hold true for most mantises. Problem is, it doesn't apply to someone like Paterfelis. Despite becoming mantis, her capability was dubious at best. She dies through a mild gust of wind, and I'm not even confident she can even beat your average Honkai beast. I don't think she's hiding anything contrary either, so as much as I like her character, D tier. Moving to C tier. Characters in this tier are not useless in a fight, but they would need some serious aid to reach their full potential. Usually this comes in the form of broken weapons like divine keys, or in some cases, a scream for help. It perfectly describes characters like Kalen, who is a Caslana that could only realistically reach her upper limit only when she's using her Oath of Judah. Take away her personal weapon and she's about as strong as the characters with superhuman strength, which is most of them. And considering that there's no evidence that suggests that she fully awakened her stigma, C tier. Next on this list is a pseudo-Herrscher, Yae Sakura, not to be confused with the previous era counterpart with a similar name. She was an above-average fighter that got possessed by a very angry Herrscher in a box. Despite having the Herrscher tag, she didn't seem too strong due to her not being an actual Herrscher nor a fully formed one. A hard one to say, I think. C tier. Next is Welt. For characters that rely on their compatibility with strong gear, Welt is an unfortunate fall from his prime days. Ever since he gave his Core of Reason to Bronya, he has fallen back to using the Star of Eden near exclusively for his combat needs. While he still has some of his former power, probably thanks to how the Core of Reason works, you would never see him spamming out big fat machines like in StarCraft or something, like when he fought Siren. But let's say for the sake of argument that he could somehow still do it, his body will most likely give out long before he could do much damage. At his current strength, he relies more on his brains than actually throwing the punches himself. C tier. Next is Wendy. How I say this? Her being a Herrscher is an entity that is hyped up for being hard to beat and stuff, like strong and shit, but then she lost to a bunch of above average Valkyries. I'd throw her in D tier for disappointment, though to be fair, her lackluster performance is explained by her not reaching the full Herrscher stage yet, and also wavering emotionally due to her connections to her opponents. C tier. Next, we have Seele, specifically the blue one, which most people would agree is the weaker one than her counterpart. It's severely supported by how she's like having problems dealing with hordes of monsters that for others would at most be a mild inconvenience. Still, she's been steadily improving, especially in light of the Salt and Snow arc, but for the scope of this video, C tier. Next character is Himiko. She was on track to retire early due to her many health problems. The only reason she had a chance at beating anything remotely strong was her using the Divine Key suit with the Fire Gem, and that suit puts a lot of strain on the user. Overall, not a good look. Maybe she could beat some of the later characters, but her chances will go down drastically if the fight lasted any longer than 5 minutes. C tier. Coming up is B tier. Characters in this tier is mostly battle hardened and aren't too reliant on having big weapons doing the work for them. Take Raven. She's good at fighting, knows how to use broken gear to one-up her opponents, and also got a mantis surgery thanks to the World Serpent. I'm not too sure if her mantis surgery is as powerful as the traditional ones. I don't think she even went through any active Honkai reaction that got her into her beast form, but at the very least it should at minimum get her superhuman strength and reflexes, which who doesn't? B tier. Next is Siegfried. While he's a Castellana, usually meaning the person is naturally gifted at fighting, unfortunately he fell off harder than the kids at the kids slide. Looking at his appearance, his beast form may be a bit weaker or on par with Kevin's, but I don't really think he can last through another round of that considering how much it affected him after the fact. I may be rating him too low, but really he does not seem healthy enough to be able to fight properly. Maybe he could use the Shamash, but that's more of a crutch at this point. B tier. Next is Rita. She's made out to be like an elite assassin type of character. She comes with her own collection of battlesuits as typical for Shikso Valkyries. She's here mostly due to the fact that stronger characters throw away the need to use any gear because they can just materialize them out of thin air. She borrowed some of Durando's power back in Colostan and seemed to still have it after the fact, being able to jump through dimensions and stuff. So overall, I think she's a B tier. Next for Shikso Valkyries, we have Sushang, who actually achieved an impressive feat of beating her master. She was taught Aponia's reality-bending techniques that Fuhua rebranded to the fancy name of the Edge of Taishuan. Today she's a Stigma Awakened, which will probably mean she's stronger than your average Shikso Valkyries, considering she was made a high-ranking one right after she came out of hibernation, though whether her rank is given based on her loyalty or merit still remains to be seen. According to her character story, her dress is actually a battlesuit, which along with the 10th Divine Key she lugs around, means that she relies on equipment and therefore in my professional opinion, she can be that strong. B tier. Next is our bitter melon juice enthusiast, Teresa. She's actually a seasoned veteran despite how she acts sometimes. On paper, she was born with a beast genes that grants her regen 4, along with allowing her to literally eat away at her problems. But right now, she's kinda in a limbo, like maybe she got her moments here and there, but it didn't really change how strong or weak she is to any significant degree, except for that one scene in the Moon arc, and that's about it. We didn't learn anything else. She has a lot of potential, but currently not strong enough. B tier. Going higher to A, the characters here pack a lot of punch, with barely an underlying weakness if any. Fuhua is the flagship of this case. She is a mantis with the brains to fully make use of it. Sure, she cannot fully use her beast form for too long, but she's still a formidable opponent. Her body that was crippled from back then was healed and she's closer now than ever to her prime, with some Herschel powers that she sadly cannot use until she annoys sentience into giving her read access. So imagine my reaction when she lost to Sushang. I'm still convinced till this day that she deliberately failed somehow. For that performance, I award her A tier. Next is Eden, who I'm not too sure where to put. It's like there's not much details about what she did or how she fought, which either means she wasn't that great at combat or she didn't actually do anything noteworthy enough. I'm leaning towards the latter for this one for the reason that she did actually participate and survive through all of the important encounters in her time. A tier. Having your shining moments in combat is great and all as a story to boast about to your successor, though a person can also shine in other aspects like Wilvi. She didn't seem useless in combat by any means, but her main strength comes from her various inventions, though with the small problem of the voices inside her head, which have led her to make some
interesting devices,
ranging from the pivotal weapon of the century to the fully automated audio data transcript mapper with fireworks launching machines. A tier.
Nope.
Next on the list we have the shadow avatar of Seele, Veliona. By the info we have up to the moon arc, she's like the persona in Seele's Stigma, which would put her on par with your typical Stigma Awaken, maybe a little bit higher because she probably is the Stigma. A tier. Next, we have Siren, who at her peak was the Herrscher of the Void that also had 4 extra gems with their own respective powers, lent-leased to her by what we thought was the real Honkai, but as recent chapter has it, was probably Prometheus. This can probably be its own video, but anyways, having 4 Herrscher powers on top of your broken one is in fact pretty strong, though she wasn't exactly immune to attacks herself. You could say she's a glass cannon in a way. A tier. Now, having a Herrscher power in your pocket is great, but it's even better if you can just materialize a stem, which everyone fits the situation. Otto, with his key of revelation, can mimic and switch between them, which would make him very versatile in combat. Now, his divine key is a bit special in the sense of it not really being a physical weapon, as it kinda just attaches itself to a user, so you can't exactly take away the damn thing. The weapon itself comes with cool stuff like knowledge, which its user can make use of, like using an ancient material to make a backup body for themselves, practically making them unkillable. Oh, I know, it was a perfect fit for a scheming bastard Otto was. A tier. At S tier, things become spicy. Cosma is a character that turns into a killing machine when he enters his beast form. His teammates talk about how hard it is to calm him down once he goes over the edge, because he wasn't a stable mantis, meaning that if left alone, what's left after the fight wouldn't be Cosma anymore. Part of the reason why he was put on missions that wouldn't usually require him to go all out, like babysitting a child for example. S tier. Next, we have Aponia. While she can probably snap your neck, she won't do it directly because she could make you do it yourself with her hypnotic powers. She calls it discipline, and it's really effective. Like that one time she told her colleagues to subscribe to Potato Almanac. Like that one time she single-handedly raised morale by just telling them, "Don't be sad," which worked wonderfully up until the masses became a tad bit too enthusiastic and game over Sakura's little sister, which caused her inner Herrscher to awake and screw them even further. S tier. Talking about the oopsies with Sakura's little sister, Sakura is a strong character. She was a deadly assassin that can also brawl just as well as some musclehead, as evident from the fact that she was able to stalemate against Kelpass, which few were capable of. I'm not putting her any higher because her brokenness mostly comes from her frozen Nakara, which contrary to popular belief, isn't the Ice Divine Key. The efficiency of her weapon was put on full display when she used it to escape death in the Elysian Realm chapter. Anyways, I can't exactly tell how much her weapon contributed to her overall capability, but for the impressive stuff she has pulled so far, S tier. Next up is Mobius. Mobius seems to have been a non-combatant, but that doesn't mean she can't fight. On the contrary, she can and will kill, or to be more accurate, eat them. You see, her mantis power practically grants her immortality, provided that she gathered some sustenance for the process. S tier. Moving on, we have Sentience. She's the one hawking off Fuhua's Herrscher's ability. The ability itself is quite broken. Basically, she would drag her opponents into her mind space where she, as the master of the space, can easily overpower her enemy faster than she could in the real world. That is until she's facing someone way too strong and just ignores all that. She can rely on the usual mind games that Fuhua used to be able to do with her Fenghuan down because she's the Herrscher of that authority. These two things alone make her quite broken, but not broken enough, I think. S tier. Next we have Su. Su was a psychic mantis similar to Aponia, but according to himself, he's a bit weaker. He don't have the physical ability nor psychic prowess to compete with the strongest opponents, which you could clearly see when he lost to Kevin in a matter of seconds even with 2 divine keys. But maybe it was because Kevin was just too damn strong. Still, he has shown himself to be fairly capable, like that time he used his mind powers to calm Mobius down when she was rampaging in her beast form. S tier. Coming up to the highest tier, we depart from theoretical capability to the realm of unavoidable annihilation. We have Kiana, obviously, who became the most powerful thing in the universe that we know of after brutally clubbing Kevin to death. Her finality power is the combination of every single Herrscher authorities we have seen in-game. The power itself is the power over time, which is what made up the universe. Therefore, she can do pretty much anything you could possibly think of. God tier. Next, we have Mei, the person who inherited the origin authority. In law, is supposed to be on the same level as finality. What that means is that she could do whatever really, similar to what finality does, provided that she wishes for it enough, which seems to be how the power works. God tier. Moving on, we have Alicia. Alicia is interesting because she was an enigma. It's about how she was born a Herrscher. She seemed to have been the result of the finality cocoon fat fingering the creation screen or something, because normally Herrschers are supposed to not be on even ground with finality. Neither were they supposed to have the free will to decide to not pursue the embrace thing the Honkai was doing, something which usually amounted to causing mass game overs to the local human population. She put that capability on full display when she kinda like returned to Honkai and installed a national belief that with enough effort, people can break free from the Herrscher mindset, along with cucking finality from doing their world reset when they failed that embrace goal. God tier. Coming up, unsurprisingly, is Bronya. For the longest time, she has already been quite strong with what was practically creative mode power, being able to create stuff on the drop of a hat provided she understood its structure, with the only real limiting factor being her at the time incomplete control over her core, which is a non-factor today after she took full control of the 300,000 souls inside her core. A single Selene may be a strong weapon, but what if you just make like 100 of them and fire them at the same time? You get the idea. And now with her Herrscher of Truth power, she can even make stuff that don't even exist yet. God tier. Next is Duandor. She's the actual Kiana whose parents both had strong stigmas, and as their child, she inherited these stigmas and became really strong, especially after she awakened her stigmas. She didn't get that many chances to show off much of it. Still, she does seem to be able to fight your typical Herrscher and even some strong mantises like Kevin, though whether she could beat him is still debatable. God tier. On the topic of Kevin, half of his character trait is being strong and the other half is giving you the least information possible when talking. The reason he's so damn overpowered was due to the genes that he got from his mantis surgery. It grants him, I think, at least 3 different beast forms. As the person who had the highest kill streak against Herrschers, there's no doubting his ability to slam his opponents into the ground. God tier. If Kevin is about being strong, then Kalpas took this notion to an 11. Not because he's actually stronger than him, but because that's basically his character. Every interaction anyone had with him, see them treading lightly between his surprisingly wholesome side and the not so wholesome one. His colleagues believed that he could comfortably take on all of them minus Kevin at the same time, which tells us a lot about his reputation as the resident musclehead. As for how strong he is exactly, I think he would be able to do a couple back and forth with someone like Kevin, though not capable of fully winning. Because if he could, he wouldn't have been the one running on the moon after the battle now, would he? Though whether that was because of his recklessness or something else is anyone's guess really. God tier. So that's what I think of the characters that are interesting in Honkai Impact. Characters I did not include are the ones that are too minor to talk about, like Xin Mao. Or maybe they were just gimmicks that are impossible to tell, like the Herrscher of Domination, who you could say was quite strong for their ability to steal a Herrscher's power, except when it sometimes doesn't work just because some Herrscher authorities were just too high. Some just exist or do nothing but give exposition, so there's nothing to talk about them. Characters like Sushana or Prometheus. Or maybe they are characters like Hare that don't show how capable they actually are because they are secretly holding back. Within the scope of this video, of course, which was requested by a follower on my Twitter account about a couple months ago, which is, yeah, I hope it's not too late. If there's one thing you can take from this video, always remember, that the strongest character in any given situation is the one demanded by the scriptwriter. Thanks for watching.